Welcome to the Grief Pie podcast. This is a show where we motivate and inspire men to share their grief one bite at a time. Thanks for tuning in and adding your voice and stories so that we can all heal and find joy together. Now, please welcome your hosts, Gary Scott and James Rafter.
Are you gonna be my little angry elf today? Is that what it is? I think we're gonna have a little angry elf on my hands today because we're gonna be talking about anger and grief and how for some reason anger and grief seem to go hand in hand. So welcome to another episode of Grief Pie. And today's episode is about anger and grief. And as always, a man who needs no introduction in the podcast stratosphere, Finnegan, the Wonder Dog, and his owner, his proud partner in crime, Mr. James P. Rafter. How are you, James?
I'm wet. It hasn't stopped leaking tears from God for like 4 days. It's just
Dude, I live in the
constant.
desert. We would love to have some rain. We're not getting any rain. Everyone's drowning, and we're sitting here in the desert being dry, like the desert is, because we're dry. I don't know. So you said something to me about stress and grief, and we started going a little bit deeper, and then it was like anger and grief. And I remember it kind of came really to head when you and I did our spectacular dive trip to Catalina. Remember that? And you were just so freaking pissed off. There's a lot of things, and I'm like, dude, what are you so angry about? Right? And then we just went way down that rabbit hole. Remember that?
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
You know, that was that was a frustrating day for me before you got there, right? Right, you were running a little bit behind me, and I was running to get to a dive time and a guide without you, and then I felt abandoned because, well, he abandoned me. So, um, you know, and got to try to learn how to manage some of that anger that swells up from the grief. Because I'm always in grief mode at some point in a day, and I've got to learn how not to manifest that into anger. Um, but that day in Cattle, I
Yeah.
was
Well, and I remember, we were talking about it, and it was like it brought up to me that was always so freaking angry at, Elisa. I'm like, why am I so pissed off at her all the time? I mean, why is so? And I guess because I was dealing with still a lot of levels of grief. I got dumped. Her mom got dumped her mom on me to take care of her mom. Then I got the diagnosis of cancer. Then just all this shit was happening, and I just felt there was no support there. And I was mad. And then when you and I got talking about, you felt the same way, right? As far as shit that was going on with you.
yeah, and I'm dealing with some stuff right now that that I should probably overcome, but I don't feel like it right now. It feels better to be angry at something or someone. Um, because when you're grieving, you want to be hugged. You want that support. And then when there's self-absorbed, selfish people that don't reach out to you, then the angry elf comes out, and you take it out in ways you probably shouldn't. Should be better at forgiving and moving on. But sometimes you just want to be angry because there's no other, you know, I think you basically have three emotions, right? You have sadness, grief. We'll tie those together. You have happiness and love. We'll tie those together. And then you just have anger and you're mad at stuff. I should probably never watch the news. Because that just makes me a really angry elf. Uh, but more on the personal side with my people in my life is I have to move on in some way. But if they're not going to reach out, what am I supposed to do? I'm not going to beg them to reach out to me, but I shouldn't be angry at them for being how they are.
Well, but and the thing is, um, when you're raw, as we are, and so many people in our shoes, right? And you're eating a lot of shit, right? And you're raw, you're sore, you're tired, you're emotional, and you don't feel you're getting support. And I don't mean to be a whiny Wendy. I don't think we are. I don't think it was like, man, what about me? No one loves me, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, when you're going through your everyday shit, you're getting up, you're working, you're functioning, you're doing your job, and there's no outlet for like, I'm still in the shit, right? A lot of times that becomes anger. It's like, fuck it. I'm just pissed. I'm not healing. I'm not getting better. People aren't reaching out. People don't understand what I'm going through, yada yada. And it's an angry spiral.
Oh, here we go. First of the day, 100%.
I gotta get a sign
So,
or a card that just says, "Oh, when we get our hats, where's my hat? I want my freaking hat."
oh yeah, we don't sleep at night. Um, we've got demons and angry elves in our heads all day long, night long. Um, which doesn't help for, how we attack the day, as everyone else is waking up and we've been up since 2 in the morning or whatever, right? I mean, most people get up at 7 and take a shower and start their day, and we're like, oh, it's bedtime. I'm going back to the cave and grab a nap. So that leads a lot. That leads a lot to the angry grief and also angry stress. Um, there's a lot of things that go on, and we've talked about this before. Last year was a blur, right? That year one was a blur, and it and I tried to just stay busy doing stuff, right? But this year has been a lot more challenging on the angry grief side. It was like Christmas fly fishing in Georgia, right? Should never have been angry that day. But, 3 hours into fly fishing and now I'm cold, I'm wet. I got to cross the river. Um, and I'm like, I just got angry. I wanted to be done. I was over it. Kind of like when we were at Catalina. I was over it. I was done. And I just got to be able, I think, for me, this is just for me. I got to learn to like just get out of situations when I start feeling those feelings.
Yeah, but the
Uh,
world sometimes drags you back in, just like, today with your copter deal, right? I mean, that was a tragedy, and that's really took you you know, down a whole nother dark tunnel.
yeah, so I don't know when we'll post this one, but I'll just reference what's today?
I have no
Today's the
idea.
8th? Yeah,
It's
something like that.
February.
It is February, but we lost my one of my beloved helicopters um the other day, and they just found 5 of my brothers dead up on the side of the mountain. And I just got so pissed. One of my good friends, my neighbor actually, was a pilot in a CH-53 in my squadron. And again, it wasn't my squadron that crashed; it was a different squadron out of Miramar. But I was so mad, and we were talking about it last night because one of my job was writing flight plans, and pilots fly, air crews do their thing, crew chiefs do their thing. I did my thing where I was always responsible for weather conditions, what the best route was to get from A to B. And I can't believe, and I said this in some text and some stuff I wrote that we'll post at some point, that I couldn't fathom anyone would fly that flight, that path, that route at that time of day in those conditions. It was a recipe for disaster. So I was talking to my buddy last night, and we just like relived or retraced their path. And they didn't have to all die. They could have diverted to El Centro. They could have gone to Yuma. They didn't have to come up over the mountain that night. They could have spent one more night before they tried to get home to Miramar. And I'm just so mad. And then I get even more angry at the reporting and how horrible reporters are and the media are today with their lack of knowledge and information. It just frustrates. So yeah, so today I'm an angry elf. And then my dad called me today to make sure I hadn't jumped off a cliff or something. But he was saying the same thing. He's reading the reports, and he's like, "What would you have done?" I said, "I would have put him down in Yuma. I just never would have ever sent him over the hill. And that was my job. Is I didn't fly the helicopter, but I gave him the map, the flip charts. I told him where to go, how to get to where we got to go. So that made me really angry the last 2 days. So
Yeah.
and brokenhearted because 5 of my brothers did not have to die just because they all wanted to get home. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Just stupid.
That's a wicked tragedy. And like you said, interestingly enough, just a couple days before that, not knowing that this was going to happen, you said, "Hey, we're soldiers, man. We're trained to die." And it's just the nature of the game. And we didn't know that a couple days later, a freaking helicopter was going to crash. But yeah, I mean, you soldiers, you included, you're like you said, you're trained to die, and that was the thing. I mean, when you're in a battle, which you're not, but when you are, these guys have to be trained for every logistic challenge, right? I mean, so yeah, considering we're not in war and it's not an emergency and they didn't have to do it, maybe they should have been, grounded. But maybe they thought, you know what, this is what we do. We fly.
Yeah, and I get that, but there's at a point, not to get too deep into this part of it, from an operational standpoint, which is what I did, is you make better decisions. But again, I get it if we're in battle and we're going after the Taliban or Osama in Afghanistan, and we've got to fly some dangerous missions. But yeah, this was dumb. It
I'm sorry,
it
my brother.
pissed it
Yeah.
pissed me off so much. And we did, and we had just talked about it. It was weird. And that's kind of what I wrote today, this morning, about was, yeah, we are trained. We we learn that our lives are, fodder, and that there's a really, really good chance, if we go to battle or if we're flying or doing something that we're not going to come home. But you got to make better decisions when there's not bullets flying over your head and you don't have a chance to fire back, right? I can fight and die if I can fire back. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this whole anger grief thing, I mean, it's another example of what sparks the anger, right? And it stems from grief. You're really hurting for these guys, for their family. You know the equipment, the machines, a lot of how these guys are. So it really hits close to home, and then when we're talking about the stress and the anger, grief connection with family member, friends, doctors, um, you know, people, whatever, it's like there's a real anger issue that can pop up, and you don't, you know, you feel guilt about it, like, God, I just don't want to be so pissed off at everybody, and I just don't want to be the angry elf, and but I don't have an outlet for it. I'm not a yeller, I'm not a fighter, right? So it's not like I'm gonna start yelling at the kids or yelling at my wife or whatever, yelling at the doctors or clients or whatever. But you know what I mean? That just anger just flares when you're in that grief. And a lot of it has to do with frustration. I mean, because there's nothing you can fucking do about what's going on with the situation. And it's frustrating. And so you just get mad.
yeah, all right, number two, 100%.
Thank you.
And I've been dealing with this since January of 2020 when I found my brother dead. And it's just, when is it going to stop? When is it just going to go back to the way it was? Where all I did was get mad, at a teenager for taking the car, when he wasn't supposed to. I mean, I don't go back there. That's I,
Yeah, if I had a nickel for every time I said, man, if we could only just go back there, right? I mean, I was thinking about that today. I got angry about, April not being here because the situation came up where she'd be at her typical rock star self, and I just thought, if she was here and she and Chris were running the property management company, because that was her thing, right? Running the property management, and Chris is doing such a great job with it, and I was just doing my thing with the real estate. But what they would build together would be so awesome because she's so much better than me. And he responded better to his mom than me. And so, I mean, we get along great. We love each other. He's my son. We work together. We talk every single day. But I mean, you know what I mean? So that grief set in, and then I got angry because she's not here, and it's fucking bullshit.
I'll tell you about petty angriness, angry grief, is when I have to go shopping for like
We're all
food.
pissed off about going shopping. Thank you,
And
FJ.
I'm buying like two apples, you know, one carton of juice. I mean, I'm buying, I look like a homeless single man with my cart.
No, if you were an unhomed or whatever they call them now person, you'd be living in the cart, not using it to fill with groceries. So don't
Oh,
feel that bad. At least you have a dog over your head,
well,
whatever it is.
when I
No, that's hey, bringing that up, it's funny because I remember um shopping early on, and just it's like because we ate differently. I ate really healthy and she didn't. Um, and so I basically shopped for four people because there's four of us, almost in four different ways. And I cooked dinner almost every night of the week. And sometimes I'd have to make two or three dinners because, me and Zachy wanted shrimp, Chris wanted a chicken nuggets, April wanted a steak, so I was cooking three dinners at a time. And I didn't care. That didn't. But when I go shopping early on by myself, man, it was like I would have got that for her, I would have picked that up for her. And you're kind of looking at your cart and you're lonely. It's like, oh, fuck. But now
But
I
I'm
can
going,
only afford to shop for one, and there's two of us because I'm broke because the world's fucked. Don't go
I'm,
shopping. I mean, I hope Finn gets a job because dog food is not cheap, Finn.
yeah, he had his dog food. He gets he eats better than I do, so it's all good. But yeah, so to tie the shopping into angry grief,
Yep.
and this started back in Arizona when I first left California to go to Arizona and stayed in the 55-year-old park, right? Um, then we won't name names, but the people there were were a little cranky, and it pissed me off. And now when I go shopping I go to Vons or where Ralph's or wherever I'm gonna, shop at, and I get going down an aisle and there's a certain person type that's like stopped in the middle. They've stopped their cart in the middle of the aisle and you can't get around them.
So then you become the single shopper, homeless guy, angry elf.
I'm like whipping the cart.
You would make an amazing homeless guy.
So
You
you
just
remember
have
how
that look.
you remember how Jim Rockford would, turn that Firebird around,
Oh
you know,
yeah, on a
yeah, I can do
dime,
that
baby.
I can do that in a shopping cart. No, like no problem. I'm like, I'm like, stop, whip it around, and I'm down the next aisle
And
while
for
they're
those of
sitting
you
there looking at
who
9 different pastas
And for
and
those of you who do not know, Jim is James Rockford because he does live in a mobile home on the beach in Southern California. So yeah, yeah. They don't have the same initials for nothing. They're both JRs and they look alike. And he could drive a hell of a car. Um, can I refer back to Catalina real quick?
yeah, sure.
Um, because that was a real aha moment for me because I'd forgotten that connection, right? I mean, I knew I was pissed off all the time. I just didn't know why. So I forgot that. And then, you said to me as you're going for your second dive with me, because I raced there and you had everything in, you had one fin on, not that fin, another fin. And you stopped and you went back, got all your shit off and said, I'm not doing this. I'm not going in today. I'm like, what the fuck? What's the matter? We came all the way over here to do this. And you go, I'm pissed. Remember? You like, those cocksuckers just completely left me alone. And I'm pissed off about it. And it had a lot to do with the fact that you were just so sad, the place that you were in. And it just kind of compounded.
Yeah, yeah, that should have been just a great little quick little dive. And my fault. I should have just, figured out how to get the second fin on and get down the steps. But seeing the idiots and the guide in the water, like looking at me like, yeah, I had my bitch fit. I threw my temper tantrum, and in typical me fashion, I'll never go back to those people. I mean, we'll go back and dive the park,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
but we'll go together and we'll do it. Like if I had to do that all over again, I never would have tried to dive that morning after getting off the boat. I would have just met you, gone to the hotel, had a nice lunch, um, hung out, and then the next morning dove, you know, fresh as a daisy and in a good headspace, right?
Yeah,
With my
because
best buddy.
we had a really nice day. I mean, I was gonna get in the water regardless, but but we after that we had a really nice day. We went to lunch. We had a lot of laughs. We went to dinner. We went back to the hotel room. We spooned. And then we got up the next day feeling good. But there's just so many emotions that go on, and it's hard to break that sometimes. It's hard to not be mad. Once you get into that spiral and you're fired up, it's just hard. I mean, like I said, there were so many times I was mad at Lisa, and it went on for a couple days. She goes for, a week, 2 weeks, however long at a time, on these dive trips, supposedly. Um, and so early on, I was like, shit, what the fuck? I'm alone, and that loneliness and grief then turned into anger. And of course, the only outlet was her, and getting over that was a real challenge until we had our little ta-ta-tay. And then it hit me why I'm so pissed, because I saw what happened with you, what you went through, and what we talked about. Right. And I'm like, fuck, that's me. It's not anger as much as it's the grief and the frustration.
And you never know what the trigger is going to be. There's
Yeah.
always,
Yep.
right? Um, I could be having the best day ever, right? And then all of a sudden, client does something just stupid or is high maintenance or whatever. And then there's the trigger, right?
Yep.
And then there comes the anger because I'm grieving and they don't care that I'm grieving. They don't, it's not like I have a sign and I tell them, hey, by the way, when you call me or email me, understand I'm dealing with, crappy week, because we can't do that. And so then that just kind of spirals um, into the triggers that bring on that angry grief, which is never good, because that's, for me, I get into the where I start grinding my teeth. Like, I don't know if you do that or not. It's just kind of one of the things I do when I'm stressed or angry,
Mm-hmm.
is I grind my teeth, which then creates migraines. So then now I'm mad and angry that this trigger caused this trigger that caused this. It's a spiral. And um,
Yeah. Well,
you
and
know,
right now there's a lot of triggers for you, and that's something that a lot of people are dealing with right now, with the stress. There's just so much going on in the world. It's very stressful. We both work in industries that are kind of cyclical. They can be up, they can be down, whatever. Right now, yours is in a really shitty spot in the insurance business, right? And mine with real estate. So the conversation with clients is not always chipper and cherry, right? Your client gets a 50,000% increase because of GN, Mr. Greaseball, can't run a state. And so it's it's like you're getting your ass kicked. And it's like, hey man, not in the mood for this shit.
right?
But what are we gonna do? That's what we do. So we're gonna suck it up and take it. But again, a lot of that comes back to what we started about before, was the outlet, right? What's the outlet for the stress? And how do we keep the grief from triggering the anger? How do we do that? How do we keep that grief? And again, for me, in my relationship, it was, you keep leaving me alone. We're supposed to be a partnership. We're supposed to be husband and wife. You're off out goofing around, and I can't go. Either I've got radiation, I've got chemo, I've got, work stuff. Something's going on, then I just can't go. And you go anyways, which you should. You're tired, whatever. But still, early on, it was just pissing me off. And it just turned out it was pissing me off because it was woe is me. Who's taking care of Gare Bear? Why
Right.
am I all alone again? Why the fuck get married if you just give me all alone? Wah, 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 wah. Right. And then, like I said, from that time with you, it exposed me for the fraud that I am. I was like, dude, you're beating someone up and you're using them as an outlet for your anger when you're really angry with the death. You're really angry with the grief. You're really angry because your life's not the same. And I took it out on the wrong person.
Yeah. Third time, 100%. yeah, I don't have anyone to take any anger out on except the shoppers at the store or the people in line at the bank.
Do they get
Um,
special discounts? Those ones? I'm almost there, So
we're both already there. The problem we have is that we had two amazing women, right? And the one thing that's kind of come out from this week, um, as crappy as it's been, um, is my writing is it helps me a lot to like release a lot of stuff. And then when I write, and we've talked about this, you can get this with Elisa, that validation when she's home, right? If something's going
no,
on, you guys
no.
can have
I
coffee
wish.
together and talk.
That'd be
I don't
nice.
have that, right? So then
Yeah,
that creates the angry elf
yeah.
in the room. But this week I've received multiple communications from different groups and people that I take a step back and I go, um, okay, I am loved, I am cared about. It's just not, where it was with Jen yet, but there are people that really are validating my existence. So I have to focus on that more than the angry shopper elf. So
Yeah. I'd asked you this one time before, but I don't think I've asked you on one of our babbling broadcasts. Um, I told you that I was just so angry with April's passing, right? And that um I was mad at God. Remember, we had this
yep,
conversation, and I was just like, I was just so pissed off at God for taking April. Like, what a douchebag. I mean, you've got some really shitty people in the world, man. I mean, they're just walking around. Why don't you fucking pluck them out? Why do you
right?
got to take April? Um, and so you're a man of faith,
Yes.
right? You've got deep faith. It's deep rooted in your family. Um, I have no relationship with God. So I was like, dude, all right, God, I'll cut you some slack because we don't ever talk. We've got no relationship. Why am I mad at you? Right? It's a completely different situation. Fuck that. Surprised you didn't take me. You've been trying, but you haven't yet. So when I asked you, I said, you know, are you mad at God because you're close? Because he took Jen.
No, no, I completely trust that the reason I'm able to get through every day is because of my relationship with God. Some days, again, you know how I am. I get to be the angry grief elf, and maybe I get mad at the church, the parish. You know, people that want, my $20 every Sunday in the collection thing. And so there's those moments, but never, ever on my faith. Um, when I take Finn for his walks every day to the beach, um, those are prayer moments, right? Those are times when I can reflect and take a deep breath. Uh, so that will never go away. Um, it's 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 the human element that creates angry grief elf Jim. So
Can you go can you count? Because you're Catholic. Can you count? Not count on, maybe that's not the wrong word, but can you lean on your religion to help with the anger?
oh yeah, when I go to mass and I take communion and I can sit there um in a beautiful church and listen to the sermons and the readings and reflect on that, it's all very peaceful. where I got really mad, and you know how petty I can get when I'm mad,
No,
is
no, Jimmy, no,
is I
Jimmy,
had reached
no.
I had reached out to the parish I was going to here in Oceanside, and I wanted to join or talk to the Knights of Columbus. So I was going to get really involved in charity work and all that stuff. So I had reached out to them and no one got back to me. So angry grief elf Jim gave them the big FUs, and I haven't been back to that parish um, in a while.
When you
Um,
told me that kind of was the same relationship, how you felt when you were ignored by the dive guys.
yeah, yeah,
And I said to you, I don't know if you remember this, but I said to you, I said, well, that's a surface kind of anger. You're mad at those dudes. You're mad at the parish for not reaching out to you. But I said, what what's below that? What really is making you so angry? And do you remember what you said?
no. What did I say?
You said, because no one fucking listens to me
Oh, that's true.
and
Yeah,
no
you're
one
invisible.
cares
Yeah.
and I don't feel heard. And that is really the genesis of my anger. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Now I do remember that conversation in that it goes back to being alone, missing Jen because we had that relationship, right? Where we were always talking to each other every day. We always knew each other's moods, um, good or bad. We were always the team. And yeah, it's really, really rough. So we'll just do this as a shout out to folks listening. It is rough to be alone. Um, after you've lost a significant other. I feel better when I have and I'm able to reach out to the kids. And we talked about this earlier this week, is they kind of understand where I'm at now. So now every day this week, you know, we the three of us, four of us, text each other good morning and good night just to make sure we're all okay. And that helps a lot. Again, because no one wants to feel abandoned or neglected. So again, find your resources, reach out, be honest. Again, I had to be really, really honest with the kids on how I felt, to make them understand, where I'm at in this space right now. And they didn't really understand it, until we had that really come to Jesus talk. And not that I was going to kill myself, but I was I was going somewhere.
And you were angry.
Yeah. No, I was mad. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And as I said, I'm sitting in the car today thinking about, April should be here doing this because she's so much better at it than me. And I was angry. And then I kind of stepped back. I'm like, why am I so pissed about this? We do this every day. And then I just realized I was sad because I just talked to her with one of the construction guys that showed up on a project. And we just talked about April because, April, that's where he came from. April hired him. April put him to work all the time. And Andy always laughs. He said, I was always afraid of April. She'd always yell at me in Spanish. So I'm meeting with them. And of course, we're going over a bunch of different shit. And I'm like, April should be here doing this with you. He goes, I know. I miss her. I like working with her better. I go, I thought you were afraid of her. He goes, well, I was, but I still loved her. So that made me really sad, which then made me angry, and
Yeah.
there's so many moments like that where you're just like, I miss them. I wish they were here. And your sadness turns to anger because they're not frickin' here. And for like, for you and Jen, it's just like May and April. I mean, we worked together. We got up, we went to work, worked in the same office, came home to the same house. I mean, we were together 24/7. And let's talk, talk about a huge void. It's like, well, where's that person that was always here?
That's where the angry grief elf comes
Yeah,
in.
and I remember early, because I ran so fast, I didn't have the situation that you're in. I mean, I went right to a relationship, right? Because I did not want to be alone because I know the consequences of me being alone and they're not good, right? So I really can't imagine, what you're going through with that. And I could see how easily you can get pissed off on everyone when they're not reaching out.
Yeah, and to that point, I don't have like what I want to come out of these podcasts is some sort of sage advice. I'm just not there yet to give anyone sage advice. My only advice would be when you become that angry grief elf, um, find a way to get out of it. Find something happy to do. Um, Reach out to a friend. Do something. Don't just wallow in it.
Yeah, and I'm deep. I'm long. I'm 9 years out, and I still don't have any freaking answers. I don't have any answers. I don't have any way to console you. I don't have any way to walk you through shit. All I can do is share what I went through, because again, we are not professional anything,
Not
and we're
professionals.
not professionals, and so again, we'll have resources for that on our website.
And if
But I
I,
mean, but what we can share though is a brotherhood,
yeah,
and we can commiserate, and we can allow someone to say, you know what, I am pissed, and I've been holding this shit in because I'm in such grief over the loss. I'm fucking pissed. And I'm putting on the mask like we talked about in one of the other episodes, and I'm doing my thing, but I'm pissed. And I feel bad for being pissed. I feel guilty for being pissed. I don't want to be pissed off at people. I don't want to be pissed off at my kids or friends or family or a new relationship, right? But I am. And I don't have an outlet. And that's why talking to bozos like you and me, it
well,
might help. It always helps when I talk to you. And then funny thing is, people may not know this. Maybe they think we just hop on this podcast once a week, but you and I freaking talk all the time, like two
my
girls.
my dad was really funny today. And again, my dad's 93, 94, right? And he's still, worried about, what's going on, was concerned about where my head was after the crash. And he's like, I know it's got to be tough for you right now because it's raining cats and dogs, right? So I can't go to the beach. I mean, it's cold, can't dive, right? None of the things I normally do, I can't fish. I got my poles sitting up on the side of the motorhome, but I'm not going to go fishing in, the sewage pond that is the Pacific Ocean right now. So there's very few outlets, especially right now. So yeah, it's why, yeah, I've had a tough few days just because there hasn't been an outlet. Um,
Yeah. I
other
didn't know you guys were getting that much rain. I mean, shit, we're just not getting any. So that's kind of weird. So I don't know. I guess we'll wrap this one up. I mean, I wanted to talk about it because not only did I have that experience today, I know that you've been carrying it since, well, for a number of years, but I mean, it's really kind of flared up again since our Catalina trip with Sunday, with the kids' intervention, and I think that it's just such a deep topic. I don't think we're touching on it well. I wish I had better words for it, and I wish I could get guys, like you said, to understand, reach out and find some resources, find an outlet. Don't eat the crap, don't eat that anger. It's wicked, man. It'll just eat your shit. So don't be mad. I know it's hard. I was talking to a really good friend of mine who had a couple terrible losses, and he's still just so mad. And that got me thinking about it too. So we'll find an outlet, right, buddy?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
Thank you.
There are, I don't know where my life's gonna go, who I'll be with down the road, but I'm lucky that I do have um some folks that reach out, care about me, pay attention to what's going on, and it's not a everyday thing, but it helps when I can tell that they're paying attention. So again, I think on this topic, and I just said this a minute ago, I don't have any answers other than understand that what you're feeling is not unique or bad. A lot of people that have lost significant others, that have gone through tragedies, grief, um, they're going to feel these things. And it's kind of what I wrote about this morning that I sent you. Because I've been to way too many ceremonies where wives are handed a folded flag um, as part of, you know, thank you. And keep your freaking flag, man. It's, the families need resources and help and people to talk to. So we can wrap this up without being too deep. Um, again, I would ask everyone listening, please pray for the families of the 5 Marines that died this week in San Diego. They're going to go through a lot of challenges. So if you've got prayers in your heart, pray for my Marines.
Yeah. And on that note, we will call it a day, my friend. Again, I appreciate you going deep with us. Sometimes I wonder, if doing this is healthy or not. If going too deep wells up stuff for people in a not good way, and they just don't want to go there. And I totally get that. On the other side of that, and the only thing that keeps me going, and probably you too, is that if if this does bring it up, well it up like it does for me, and I know it does for you, that can only be a good thing, because that means it's still there and it's buried, right? And you've got a diamond covered in shit. So to the folks who I know say that sometimes we're too dark or we go there too deep, I completely understand. And I love you all, and I want nothing but goodness and support and happiness for all of you. Yes. But for those of you who think, yeah, I need to get this out. I really need to get this out of my system. I have been bearing it. I have noticed the anger. I have noticed the stress over it. I have noticed it hurting certain relationships here or there. I need to clear this shit. Again, we'll have some resources on our website so you could reach out to the different groups, but you can also reach out to me and Jim. Now, he's a shit show. I am shit show B. He's side A on the record, and I'm side B as far
I
as shit show, right?
I can teach you all how to regurgitate. I'm good at regurgitating.
So there's
So
that. So everyone who's on a weight loss program and want to reach out to Jim, please do. That's not funny. We don't want any extra jokes, bulimia jokes. But seriously, so I'll end this too. I don't want to get too deep, but I just want to re-emphasize, guys. Please reach out. I've had a bunch of people do it. I know Jim has too. It's it's been helpful, and I think we've let some people in and let them know that it's okay. So please subscribe to the griefpie.com website or whatever the thing is, griefpie, whatever subscribe. Just press that button that says we like listening to your guys' babbling bullshit. Please thumbs up, thumbs down, like, share, but we really, really more than anything want to hear from guys and see if we're getting some help out there, right, buddy?
Yep, that's what we're here for.
All right, man.
We'll bring it up. We'll spill our guts, and if we can help a couple of guys, a couple of folks, then it's all worth it.
Yep,
So,
and that
love
is
you.
because love you more. And that is because we are Grief Pie, the podcast. We are two guys sharing grief, eating grief. Two guys eating grief one bite at a time. I must be hungry. It must be now. All right. Love you. I will see you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
On the backside.
See ya.
This has been our weekly broadcast. Brought to you by the Grief Pie Podcast Studios. We can be found on all the popular podcasting platforms. Remember to like and subscribe and to hit that alert button so you don't miss any episodes. Thanks again, and until next time, treat yourself gently and don't bite off more than you can chew. Healing is a process.